Imagine walking into a grocery store. You've got a backpack. It's full, stuffed with cash. Every bill you've saved, every dollar you've earned. And it's not enough to buy a loaf of bread. This isn't a nightmare. This isn't some post-apocalyptic movie. This is Venezuela, 2019. And the terrifying part? They didn't get here by accident. They followed a playbook. 5 steps. A perfect recipe for how to bankrupt a country. And your government might already be on step 2. Now, I'm not predicting anything. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not selling you a bunker. I'm just reading you the history that already happened. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. Let's rewind. 1970s. Venezuela. They call it the Saudi Arabia of South America. And that's not an exaggeration. Venezuela is sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. More than Saudi Arabia. More than Russia. More than anyone. Oil prices are through the roof. Money is flooding in. Venezuelans are living the dream. They're flying to Miami just to go shopping. There's a phrase. Dame dos, give me 2. Whatever you're buying, double it. Money is no object. This is one of the richest countries in Latin America. Fast forward 50 years, those same people are hunting stray dogs for food. Parents are abandoning children at orphanages because they can't afford to feed them. 7.7 million people, a quarter of the population, have fled the country. What happened? A masterclass in how to destroy an economy. 5 steps. Each one seemed like a good idea at the time. Each one made the next one inevitable. Let's break them down. Step 1. Get high on your own supply. When you're sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, it's easy to get comfortable. Too comfortable. By the 1970s, Venezuela had become completely addicted to oil money. And like any addiction, it felt great. At first, the government was flush with cash. They built roads, hospitals, schools. They subsidized everything. Gasoline was basically free. Electricity, pennies. Food, the government made sure prices stayed low. Sounds great, right? Here's the problem. They weren't building an economy. They were building a party that depended on one thing: the price of oil staying high. Then 1998 happened. Hugo Chavez comes to power. A former military officer with big ideas and even bigger promises. We're going to share the wealth with the people. And, to be fair, he did. Sort of. He took oil money and poured it into social programs. Poverty dropped. Literacy went up. For a while, it looked like it was working. But Chavez had a problem. The people running the oil company, PDVSA, weren't loyal to him. So, in 2003, after a failed coup and a crippling strike, Chavez did something that would seal Venezuela's fate. He fired them, 18,000 workers, engineers, geologists, executives, decades of expertise, gone. Replaced with political loyalists who knew more about socialism than petroleum. There's a famous clip of Chavez on live TV, reading names from a list and blowing a whistle. You're fired, like a referee ejecting players from a game. Except this wasn't a game. This was the company that funded 95% of Venezuela's exports. Almost immediately, oil production started to decline. But oil prices were rising, so the money kept flowing. For now, Chavez didn't see a problem. He saw an opportunity. Time for step 2. Step 2. Robin Hood in reverse. Chavez's logic was simple. If prices are too high, just make them lower. If rent is too expensive, cap it. If food costs too much, set a maximum price. If businesses are making too much profit, take them. He called it economic justice. Economists call it a disaster waiting to happen. See, when you tell a farmer he can only sell rice at a certain price but his costs keep going up, he does the math. And the math says, stop growing rice. Same with bread, same with milk, same with everything. Producers started producing less. Or they just left. So, Chavez did what any self-respecting revolutionary would do. He blamed the businesses. They're hoarding, they're sabotaging the revolution. And then came the expropriations. There's another famous clip. Chavez is walking down a street in Caracas, cameras rolling, pointing at buildings like a kid in a candy store. Expropies. Expropriated. A jewelry store. Expropies. A shopping center. Expropies. Just like that. On live television. No due process. No compensation. Just, this is mine now. Over the next decade, the government seized hundreds of companies. Farms, factories, oil fields owned by foreign companies. The message was clear. Private property is a suggestion. Investors fled. Who wants to build something in a country where the president can take it with a wave of his hand? But here's the cruel irony. Remember Dame Doe's? Give me two of everything. By 2015, Venezuelans were standing in line for hours just to get basic groceries. The government had to implement fingerprint scanners to prevent people from buying too much. The shelves were empty. The stores that Chavez didn't expropriate had nothing left to sell. The people who were supposed to benefit from sharing the wealth were now hunting stray animals for food. But the government had a solution. Step 3. Step 3. The magic money printer. When you run out of money, there are two options. Option A. Make hard choices. Cut spending. Raise taxes. Admit you messed up. Option B. Print more money. Guess which one Venezuela chose? Now, Chavez died in 2013. His successor, Nicolas Maduro, inherited an economy that was already on life support. Oil prices crashed in 2014, from $147 a barrel to $40. Remember, oil was 95% of Venezuela's exports. When the price dropped, the money stopped. But Maduro had promises to keep, social programs to fund, loyalists to pay. So he turned on the money printer, and he never turned it off. At first, the government tried to control the damage with currency controls. The official exchange rate was 6.3 bolivars to the dollar. The black market rate? 10, then 50, then 200, then 1,000. If you had dollars, you were rich. If you only had bolivars, you watched your savings evaporate. The government solution? Print more bolivars. Inflation hit 100%. They printed more. 500%. More. 1,000%. By 2018, inflation hit 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Let me put that in perspective. If you had saved $10,000 worth of bolivars at the start of 2018, by the end of the year, you could buy a cup of coffee with it. Maybe. Venezuelans started carrying cash in backpacks. Not because they were rich, because the bills were worth so little. You needed a mountain of them to buy anything. There's a viral photo from this era, a pile of bolivars stacked next to a single chicken. The stack is taller than the chicken. That's not an exaggeration. That's the price of a chicken. The government's response? They printed new bills, with more zeros. And then they removed the zeros, and printed new bills again. The bolivar became a joke. The economy became a survival game. Which brings us to step 4. Quick pause here. If any of this is hitting a little too close to home, drop a comment. What step do you think your country is on? I'll meet you in the comments. Now, back to Venezuela. Step 4. The survival server. When your currency becomes worthless, people get creative. Some turned to the black market, smuggling goods from Colombia, trading in dollars, doing whatever it takes. Others found stranger solutions. Here's one you won't believe. World of Warcraft. Yes, the video game. Venezuelans discovered that farming gold in an online game and selling it to American players for real dollars paid better than most jobs in Venezuela. Think about that. Killing digital monsters became more profitable than being a doctor. A Venezuelan teacher might make $5 a month. A World of Warcraft gold farmer? $40. $50. More. So many Venezuelans flooded into the game that other players started hunting them down not for the gold, but out of frustration. There were guides posted online. How to identify Venezuelan gold farmers. It sounds absurd. It sounds like a dark comedy. But for millions of Venezuelans, it was survival. The government, meanwhile, had its own creative solutions. Plan Rabbit. I'm not making this up. In 2017, Maduro announced that the government would distribute rabbits to poor families. Not as pets, as food. A rabbit is not a pet, Maduro explained. It's 2 kilos of meat. The problem? Venezuelans had never eaten rabbit. Many families named them, dressed them up, refused to eat them. Plan Rabbit failed. But it captured something important. The government had no real solutions left. They were grasping at anything. Meanwhile, hospitals ran out of medicine. Electricity blackouts became routine. Clean water became a luxury. The country that once flew to Miami for shopping trips was now living in the dark, boiling water to survive. And for millions, there was only one option left: leave. Step 5. The Great Exodus. By 2019, Venezuela had become unlivable for millions. 7.7 million people, roughly a quarter of the entire population, have fled the country. Let that sink in. 1 in 4 Venezuelans left. Not for vacation, not for opportunity, for survival. They walked. There are images that will haunt you. Families with children, elderly people, walking for days along highways, through the Andes Mountains, into Colombia, carrying whatever they could fit in a bag. Some made it to Colombia, others to Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Brazil. They became refugees in countries that didn't want them, taking any job they could find, sleeping on streets. Starting from zero, the doctors became cleaners, the engineers became delivery drivers, the teachers became street vendors. Degrees meant nothing, experience meant nothing. Survival meant everything. And the ones who stayed? They adapted. There's a resilience in Venezuela that's hard to describe. People finding ways to make it work, trading in dollars, running generators, growing food in backyards. Some even moved their assets into cryptocurrency, anything to escape the Bolivar. But survival shouldn't be a national achievement. Survival should be the minimum, not the goal. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Every single one of these 5 steps started with an idea that sounded good to someone. Let's share the wealth. That sounds good. Let's make food affordable. That sounds good. Let's protect our currency. That sounds good. But good intentions don't guarantee good outcomes. And when you follow the wrong playbook, this is where you end up. A backpack full of cash that can't buy bread. You might be thinking, that's Venezuela. My country is different. But is it? Look around you. Politicians promising to share the wealth. Central banks printing money like it's going out of style. Prices going up. Savings going down. The cost of living outpacing every raise you've ever gotten. Sound familiar? I'm not saying your country is Venezuela, but I am saying every single one of these 5 steps started with an idea that sounded good. Let's help the poor. Good idea. Let's make housing affordable. Good idea. Let's protect our currency. Good idea. Venezuela didn't collapse because evil people did evil things. It collapsed because well-intentioned people followed a playbook that doesn't work. And that playbook, it's not unique to Venezuela. It's been tried before. It's being tried right now, somewhere. Maybe closer than you think. So what can you do? 3 things. 1. Diversify your income. Don't put all your eggs in one currency's basket. If your job, your savings, and your investments are all in one economy, you're one bad policy away from trouble. 2. Hold things that can't be printed. Assets that hold value when paper doesn't. Real estate, commodities, skills that travel, things that matter when money doesn't. 3. Keep your options open. Always have a plan B. A second passport, where legally available. A remote skill. A network outside your borders. Something that doesn't depend on any government's promises. You don't have to be paranoid. You just have to be prepared. Of course, everyone's situation is different. This isn't financial advice, just principles worth considering. Venezuela isn't dead. 28 million people wake up every day and find a way to make it work. They're resilient, they're creative, they're surviving. But here's the thing. Survival should never have been the goal. Building a life should be the goal. Thriving should be the goal. Survival is what happens when you run out of options. And the best time to create options is before you need them. So pay attention. Learn from history. And don't assume it can't happen to you. Because the playbook exists. And someone, somewhere, is always tempted to follow it. If you want to understand how money really works and why governments keep making the same mistakes, watch this video next. I'll see you there.